Welcome, everyone. It's great to have you here. I am joined by Charles Crowl today. How are you, Charles?
I'm very good. Thank you, Amy.
That's good. That's good. Really pleased to have you here. And I'm really actually looking forward to diving into your journey of really how you started in your coaching business and transition all the way through to the work that you're doing now. And so, for those of you that are coming across Charles for the first time, Charles is a people developer. He's a business leader and organizational coach, and he has over 13 years experience working with some of the biggest brands out there like L'Oreal Group. And he's the founder of 𝒂𝒏𝒄 Coaching. And I know you're super passionate about working with leaders and helping people to level up in their career. So it's awesome to have you here, Charles.
Well, super happy to be here, Amy. Thank you for the opportunity.
You're welcome. You're welcome. So I'd love to, I guess, dive in first and foremost, like, you know what I'm like, we just dive straight in there. Tell me a little bit around, like, why coaching? You've had such a great career working with L'Oreal Group, doing like so many different things. So what really attracted you to the world of coaching, and how did you get started in that space?
It's a great question. And it really starts at the beginning for me. Again, like you mentioned, I was working for the L'Oreal Group for 13 years. I was largely working in the Department of Operations, so Operations Supply Chain, Global Supply Chain Management. I was working in Australia. I was relocated to China, where I was working for 10 years, really working at this sort of big corporate regional level, where I was sort of engaged in a lot of sort of project operated work, but also a lot of team leadership. And around that sort of 8-year mark, I had that opportunity to become a people leader, a people manager. And when I did that, it really sort of opened up my eyes to what I could be doing and where I sort of found my passion. That was really around developing people. And so when I was in that role, I sort of, was always pushing the envelope of what I could do around team leadership, people leadership, culture transformation within my sort of functional scope that was happening as well. And that really sort of laid the foundation for me to sort of explore coaching and get exposure to coaching, because it was in those roles that I was coached and I had that transformational experience. And I said, wow, this is something that I think I want to do. I think I could be pretty good at it. And on top of which, it just sort of, it's a really sort of natural and a normal thing for me to do. So that's sort of how I got exposed to it. And so while I was still working at L'Oreal is when I started going down the path of, all right, if I want to move into this space, what can I do? And that really started with sort of, getting the education behind it, learning, again, right, affiliating myself with a good school, making sure that I had the skills and sort of developing it alongside what I was doing at work.
Yeah, I love that. And I think it's awesome that, you had that personal experience of being coached. And that's sort of what led you to go, oh, okay, like this is a real sort of career path moving forward. And you could take all of the experience that you had through all those various roles and really start to help other people in that space.
That's exactly it. And I really like how you mentioned about sort of bringing forward my experience and putting it into a new context, because that honestly is really what it feels like. Because a lot of people sort of say when you shift out of this, a lot of people say, oh my God, are you crazy? What are you doing? Moving out of sort of this sort of very functional area of expertise and moving into a new space at my age, not that I'm that old per se, right? But still, like, people are questioning my choices there. And to me, it's really about not sort of letting that experience go. I bring that experience with me. No one can take that away from me. And I'm finding that I'm really just leveraging all of those experiences, all of those learnings in a totally new context. And that's really sort of invigorating and energizing.
Yeah. Was that kind of scary and uncomfortable at any point in time, Charles? And you mentioned like a few people
so scary.
You were a bit crazy. So yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All the time. I think, that it was sort of something that I took a long time to come to terms with. I was really centered around trying to do everything at once. I was trying to be a coach on the side. I was trying to have my corporate career on the other side. And I was really trying to keep them separate and trying to like keep everyone sort of happy and myself happy at the same time. No, I'm still secure. I'm still safe. And I've still got this passion that I'm working on the side. And that was really important at some point. But eventually I got to a stage where I said, you know what? I see myself doing this coaching and I want to do it full time. So let's throw myself into that. And a lot of people are sharing their perspective and ideas about what that might look like or why I should be doing or how I should be doing it. But in the end, it sort of had to come down to me and how I wanted to do it. So it's taken a lot of soul searching. It's taken a lot of a lot of coaching in to sort of manage this transition. So this sort of transition out of corporate into sort of solo entrepreneurship has been a real mindset shift for me, bigger than I had anticipated. Actually, I think I was a little naive and I thought, oh yeah, I can do it. And when I was actually doing it, I was actually seeing the shifts and the changes in me, and I was like, again, right, it was a nice another pause of reflection of these sort of transformations that we go through, and it was sort of fun, right? Because when it's happening to other people, it's beautiful to witness, but when it's happening to yourself, you can kind of get a bit lost in the process. So yeah, that's it.
Yeah, totally. Was there like a specific kind of moment where you thought, okay, like, you know, trying to keep everyone happy, as you put it, you know, with the corporate career and then coaching on the side, was there any kind of you know, moment where you thought, no, you know what, I'm all in with the coaching business?
Yeah, it actually sort of happened as a sort of an external push. It was sort of, I was really trying to hold on to both of these things all at the same time. And so the organization that I was working for was going through a big structural change, which sort of involved me having to relocate geographically. And with my husband at the time, that was sort of presenting some challenges. And then, you know, again, on his side, he had another opportunity that was pulling us in another direction. And it was sort of like I was holding on to the vision of how I was going to make this work. And that became just not possible. And eventually I just kind of had to let that go. And once I did that, it was really liberating, because as soon as I sort of let go and sort of and just considered that there could be a different way that I could be doing this, it was almost like I felt like I closed a door and then just an auditorium of opportunities opened up in front of me, and I was just sort of, you know, going, oh my gosh, which avenue am I going to take? And I remember thinking at that time, you know, had I made that decision to let go earlier, you know, I would have already gotten here. So it was like a really but again, you can't rush your own journey. Your journey happens in its own time. So that was the right time for me. And yeah, that's it. And again, right, it was really that once you sort of consider other opportunities, you know, you start changing your speech, you start telling people different things, and different information starts coming your way.
Yeah, it's very true. And I think sometimes it's very easy just to stick with what's familiar to us. And, you know, sometimes this whole coaching business, it can feel really uncertain, or it can feel like you just don't know what's going to happen, or there's maybe a little bit of fear of, you know, putting yourself out there in a different way, and all of those sorts of things can start to come into play. So it's really normal that you kind of, you know, experience that, but it's awesome to see you having just moved through that so quickly and out the other side, and, you know, being a fully fledged business owner, running your own coaching business now is awesome. And I'd love to hear more around, like, now that you're in it, and now that you've got the business up and running, like, who are you working with, and like, who do you help the most, and how do you support them?
Yeah, again, that's been its own journey as well, because as I sort of was going through this, I started out when I was doing my early days of coaching, I was really, and again, right, you say it happened so quickly, but in fact, it's been a couple of years, to be honest, in terms of putting all the pieces together, in terms of getting my coaching training, building up some practice, some skills, building connections within industry, before sort of really having enough resources behind me to sort of launch into the next stage. So right now I'm really in this sort of like steep ramp up curve, but that really was a lot of preparation that went into that. But in terms of where I started, I was really looking just one-on-one. I was coaching with people inside the organization. So inside L'Oreal, I was coaching a lot of people internally. And as I mentioned, we were going through a structural change. So it provided a lot of good coaching content in terms of people going through difficult career choices and journeys. And then sort of as I sort of pivoted out of that space and really sort of focused on, I was finding, you know, where I was resonating most, again, was with big corporates. They sort of really responded to my profile, and they respond to my experience. And so as I've sort of launched out and, you know, sort of, you know, started putting different messages out there to see who I could potentially work with, it was these corporates that were sort of looking for cultural transformation. They were looking for people that had experience in work, but wanting to sort of come back and support a lot of their sort of leadership trainings. And I think what has been really interesting as well, right? I had a vision of what coaching should be until I sort of went into the market, and then now I've arrived in the market. I'm really seeing that there is a slightly different need. And so I think sort of you have to go in first and understand, you know, come with an offering. But as soon as you get that offering on the table, you get feedback.
Yeah.
And the feedback that I've been getting is that, yes, we have a lot of sort of leadership workshops and they're great. We have an amazing day. We map out a roadmap and we're ready to go. But then people go back to their day-to-day job. And the role of coaching in this space is sort of really coming in this aftercare process. So how can we sort of, accompany people on this journey to kickstart the process, but then accompany them on their journey? And coaching is really perfect for that because you're able to sort of personalize that experience for the individual.
Yeah.
And so I've even used those terms like aftercare. It's aftercare of these leadership programs to make sure that you're really supporting these people, because again, transformation doesn't happen in a day's workshop, it really happens over months.
That's right. And I love that, you sort of went into the market with one way or one sort of idea around what your business would look like, and the market told you something completely different, which is great, right? And so I think it takes that, it takes that actually putting an offer out there and getting your feet wet and doing all those things and taking a risk to put it out there, because if you sit back and plan it and think through everything, like you just can't think your way through business. You can plan and plan and plan and plan, but it gets to a certain point where you just have to go out there and you just have to make offers and you just have to see what resonates and take on that feedback. So I love that you had that experience. I think that's great.
Yeah. And I think, from the what you sort of really brought to my attention was this sort of concept of this obsession we have with perfectionism. And I think that's something very true inside the corporate landscape. You have a very specific role and responsibility, and you have a lot of resources and already existing structures that you might not be aware of that are enabling you to sort of deliver a level of perfection on something. And you're judged on your level of expertise. But when you sort of step out of that space and you're sort of having to be everything from CEO to intern, it's not possible to have all of those expertise. And again, right, when you're coming into a corporate environment, providing a service, it's very different to performing a role inside that organization. So as me sort of stepping out and coming back to organizations as a service provider, I'm seeing that the expectations are also different. And again, right, and that's been a really sort of like mind-blowing moment for me too, right? Because you think, and that's what I'm really valuing also from this experience right now, is taking me out of that role in the corporate world and sort of stepping into another. It sort of really stretched me in a really exciting way. And it's been a long time since I've had this sort of, I would say, again, mindset shift and personal growth experience as well, which has been really fun.
That's great. And I'm being really curious, like, what are you most excited about moving forward? And what are you enjoying the most about, getting to do the work that you do? Because I guess where I'm coming from is like, there's a lot of people out there that sometimes they feel it's too good to be true to be able to actually do things that you enjoy every day and actually be paid your worth from that, and actually, be able to support yourself, and not only support yourself, but more than support yourself from, a corporate salary and things like that as well, and have that kind of flexibility. So I'd be really curious from your perspective, Charles, like, what on the fulfillment side of things, what are you really enjoying the most about the work you're doing now in your business?
That's a really great question, unsurprisingly. But I think in terms of, what I've really enjoyed about this experience has been, again, pushing myself in new areas. And again, right, working inside, again, large corporate environment where I'm a generalist, right? So I was sort of sitting and leading teams and leading projects and doing a lot of leading, which required me to be quite a generalist, which again, it's my profile, it's who I am. I like to be across a lot of different things. And bring people together around those ideas. But I was often sort of seeing, but everything is very segmented. So this is your role, this is your role, this is your role, and you can sit across top and you can move and leverage people, but you don't get a chance to try everything. And so what's really been fun, actually, I've enjoyed much more than I thought I would, was really the sales and marketing element of this journey. Because again, like, the coaching is truly fulfilling. And when you have those moments with clients in the corporate context, or even when I'm working one-on-one with people, it's why you do it. Like, that's the reason. But what's been really fun, right, is getting back onto social media, creating content that resonates, and then trying to sort of also and play around with that. And it's been really fun. And way back before I was a global supply chain manager and doing all of these things, right, I used to love theatre. And I used to do a lot of that in my early days. And it's been really fun to sort of come back to this sort of performative space where I get to speak publicly more often. I have opportunities to interview people and get interviewed like I am now. And I really enjoy this yeah, again, right, these sort of different opportunities that weren't coming in the sort of my previous role. So really diving into this idea of creating a product, presenting it to the world, getting that feedback, amending it, changing it, and trying different things and just seeing what works. And I laugh, right? At the beginning, I used to be really stressed, right, when I'd put some content out and it wouldn't get the impressions that I was looking for. But now I kind of go, oh, that's kind of funny, right? I mean, because I've had some success, you know, I've had some that have gone 4, 5, 6,000 impressions, and I've had some that have had, you know, 120. So again, it's been fun to go through that process and to really learn about it.
Yeah, and I love seeing your growth in that area as well, Charles. I remember when we first started talking, and you know, that was one of those aspects that you knew you had to do as part of the business, but it wasn't something that you were like 100%, you know, ready to dive into with all the confidence in the world. And so it's really awesome to see you, you know, having moved through that and had those experiences of success in that area. So that's awesome. And what do you find is like the being the biggest impact for you? Like if we think about, I know a lot of the content you put out there is on LinkedIn. So, you know, what has been sort of the biggest impact for you from a business standpoint, do you think?
I think there's something that I'm sort of teaching as well as part of my coaching and leadership development, which is around authenticity. And in the current context of how we are working and living, right, it's a permacrisis, right? People are moving from crisis to crisis, businesses are unstable, everything is uncertain, and people in the work really reassessing their values. And so, you know, and people are wanting to come and work in places that have purpose and meaning. And people also want to turn up in places where they have a sense of belonging, as sort of psychological safety, which really comes back to, you know, turning up and being your authentic self. And again, one of the biggest impacts I've seen is actually sort of being more vulnerable, sharing more of myself, sharing more of my journey. And one of the services that I offer is also Hogan assessments. And I've been sharing a lot of my results, my personal personality results, and how I've reflected upon that and how I've seen that play out, both good and bad, and sharing that with other people. And those discussions and those sharings have been some of the most I would say impactful in terms of impressions. People like and comment and really respond to it, and also sort of created conversations to have, you know, to take my business further as well. People go, oh, I've really connected with that. I'd love to learn more. Can we have a chat? So I think that turning up and being authentic, and it's funny because you do create a version of yourself even on LinkedIn, on social media. It's what it is. It's not curated, right? Even today, I made sure I had my shirt on, my hair's done, and my setup is nice. But at the same time, you can still be yourself in that context, because that is part of who I am as well, right? I like to turn up and you know, make sure everything is looking the part. Totally. And again, but I think it's just really nice that people really do respond to that, and that really translates to the leadership journey as well. That's what I'm telling leaders that I'm working with, to share more of yourself. You have to be more vulnerable. You have to be willing to say that you don't know everything, willing to say that you're on a journey and you're not yet perfect. And before, leadership was nothing like that, and leadership is all about that now. And so I think, having lived that in the corporate world, having lived that as an entrepreneur, I'm really able to draw on all those experiences and drive impact in a different way, and in a new way that, you know, had I not gone through this journey, I wouldn't have been able to do. So again, now that I've sort of stepped out and running my own business, I'm sort of taking even more. I've got even a richer pool of experiences to draw on to sort of drive impact in my coaching.
Yeah, I love that. So even sort of, you know, going through that experience yourself, it has made you essentially a better coach, you know, and given you more tools in your toolkit.
100%.
Yeah, awesome. And I know through the work that you've been doing on LinkedIn as well, you know, it's happened quite organically for you. And like you said, you've shown up in an authentic way. And so, you know, you've had quite a few, you know, businesses and people reaching out to you, wanting to work with you from that, which is awesome too.
Yeah. And again, right, because at the end of the day, behind each one of those organizations are people. And so there's a person that's the L&D manager, there's a person that's the CEO, there's a person that is a manager first time struggling. And even though you carry the face of that organization, that brand sits in front of you directly, one bit behind it is a person. And they're looking to connect with other people to do business, and they're struggling on things. They don't know everything. That's why they're reaching out for you for help. And sort of being able to turn up and say, I'm a person, I don't know everything, but this might be able to help you. You create a really nice relationship. And that's what surprised me as well. I always sort of thought, you know, when you come into this corporate service provision role, you become just the lackey that gets thrown all the work and get it done and come back when it's finished. But again, particularly in the coaching and learning and leadership development space, it's a really nice community of people, which is really fun.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, I love how it's sort of like, streamlined now, and you've got everything up and running, and you've learned from, the content that's been working and the content that, hasn't sort of worked as well and fallen flat, and going through all this experience and learning along the way. We've all been there, and we've all done it. So I think that's really cool. And, you're such an integral member of our tribe, and we love working with you and supporting you in the business as well. And I'd love to sort of hear, I guess, from, just working with myself and the team, throughout your journey of kickstarting the business. What's a couple of things that you've really sort of taken away from that's made a really big impact for you in your journey?
I think there was, I love leadership and I love working with people. And again, my home assessment tells me that as well. And, I was really feeling alone for a long time in this journey, and trying to sort of, I was relying a lot on my partner, who's also has a different and diverse set of skill sets that was really helpful for me to sort of get my business rolling, and I leverage him continually as well. But having a group of people that I could come to with questions that really understood where I was at, because even my partner is very close to my journey, he's still not in my journey. And so it was sort of nice to have a sort of a space where I could really bring my problems and bring my issues and sort of share what was going on for me, and have a group of people that were at different stages of the journey. So I had some people that were like me, that were trying to work it out. We were like, all right, how are we going to do this? And I had other people in the group that were telling me, oh yeah, I was there 3 months ago and this is how I got through it. Maybe you can think about this. And really sort of having that space to bring bring those points to, where it was really helpful. And I think that's, again, right, it was also a bit in my nature. I'm also someone who likes to consult a lot before I make a decision. And so I was finding I was consulting a lot of people, but again, all of that information wasn't always relevant. They didn't understand where I was coming from. So I sort of, narrowed my scope of who I would ask advice to, and it really sort of centered really a lot around the in-demand group, because again, right, I could trust it, it was reliable, and it was sort of relevant to what I was doing.
Yeah, I love that as well, because I find it really interesting, when you first even put yourself out there to say you're running a business, or people know that you're in business for a period of time, people are very quick, just to give you some advice or opinions or things. And they've never run a business before, or they've never gotten the results that, you're after in your own business. And so it's like, hold on a minute, maybe I should learn from people that have actually done this.
Yeah, no, it's really true. And again, right, and it's not that people want you to succeed. People are really in your camp, right? Even everyone in your community just wants to see you succeed, and that's it. So that's all they're concerned about. And so they're trying to look at how can they bring you value. But I'd have all these people go, oh, but have you thought about recruitment? Oh, recruitment's in a real demand right now. People need recruiters. And I'm like, I know it's in the HR space, but I'm not a recruiter, right? That's not my passion. That's not my drive. So thank you for the advice, but it's not helpful.
Yeah, but I'm going here. That's awesome. And where do you want to go from here in the business, Charles? If we, let's just sort of fast forward even 12 months from now. I know you're already working with some really big organizations, and you're working with some really high level individual leaders as well. So where do you want to take the business from here?
I think from now, it has been a long journey even to get me to here. Like I said, it's been 24 months, I would say, of training and learning and developing the skills and building up the structure for what's working now. And to an extent, I'm still kind of letting the path grow organically. So now that I've sort of understood where I sort of fit within my market, and what my market's looking for, I'm really developing and trialing a lot of sort of different programs and different structures to sort of see what's going to fit. So I think I'm sort of, in 12 months' time, I think I would like to sort of see myself with a much more sort of solid product offering. And then sort of evolving that for the next stage of my existing relationships. Sort of say, okay, we've started with this and this has been great, but now I understand you better, you understand me better. What's the next level that we can take this relationship to? And really sort of have some really strategic big partners that I'm working with, that we can sort of continue that journey over many years, and not just sort of, one-off coaching engagements.
Yeah, I love that. And I think that's really awesome, is to sort of build those long-term relationships in the business as well, and grow it, quite organically and quite authentically, as you have been. I think is an awesome way to go about it. And I'd love to hear, from your perspective as well, having done part of this journey on your own, having done part of the journey with us as well, if there's anyone that's sort of on the fence about, whether they should, work with us or just even hire a business coach themselves in general to help them, what would be your advice?
that is something that you need to consider. So what is it that you can get out of it versus what you're going to put into it?
Yeah.
And often at the beginning of your journey, you're putting up money up front before you've got sort of cash through and revenue coming through to justify. And to me, that was sort of a shift as well. And I sort of had to, I shifted my mindset to consider it really part of my startup capital, as opposed to, an additional thing that I could bring in to sort of tweak. And I think that you just have to decide where you are on that journey and where it fits in.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, a reminder, you do all the work, huh? When you, I mean, it's funny because Amy, you coach coaches, and we coaches know that when you coach someone, it's them that has to do all the work, and you provide the framework and the space for them to reflect and make it happen. But sometimes we coaches forget that as well. But when I dived in and sort of putting that, that commitment financial there kind of really also pushed me to be like, all right, you've told the world you're going to do this, so do this properly. So those that are sitting on the fence, I can tell you it's a really rewarding journey, but you just need to be ready to put in the work to get what you want out of it. It's not it's not pay for solutions. It's you're sort of paying for a process, and you have to be ready to go through that process.
Yeah. And like you said, be ready to, be vulnerable, put yourself out there, do the scary things, to get to that next level. Yeah.
Absolutely. And again, there was one thing that you really taught me that I often reflect on, right, is sort of level up. You never know everything at the beginning, and you've got a long journey to get to. And holding on to perfection and trying to pop up at the end with a beautiful product is not how it works. You really have to sort of just take it step by step and really sort of do that. And each time you get to the next level, you need to pause, reflect, and say, okay, how am I going to get this done? And you might do it well, you might do it not so well, but that's okay. It's a process, and you only do it by doing it bit by bit. So that's also, I think, something that these businesses don't happen overnight. They really happen step by step. So you have to have that ability to sort of hit a challenge, work out how to fix it, hit a challenge and work out, and then you keep on moving. Which again is true in all parts of life. It's been fun to see that play out here. But that's one of the other big takeaways that I've had as well, right? That when I am struggling, when I am feeling like I'm stretched, like I have been in the last couple of weeks, I know I'm learning something out of that experience, and it's that decision: do I lean into it and work out how to get through it, or do I just sort of push it to the side and put it in the too hard basket and what happens? And of course, leaning in and working through it always brings something.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's awesome. And for anyone that listening to this, if they are a leader themselves, or they're looking to sort of lean into something else in their own career and looking at really leveling up themselves, where can they find you, Charles? How can they get in contact with you?
Of course, great question. Of course, I'm on LinkedIn. I'm there all day, every day.
Always a trick question.
I'm on LinkedIn. Of course, right, my website, www.𝒂𝒐𝒉𝒆𝒏𝒕𝒊𝒄.com is up and running as well. And also my email, you can find me there. So these are sort of the two best ways to get in contact with me.
Yeah, it's awesome. And just to reiterate, we love working with you, and it's just been awesome to see your progress to date. And you are someone that just leans in, asks the questions that they need, and that's why you're getting the results. And so thank you so much for just being open and sharing your journey, because I know that someone listening to this who perhaps is, in those first couple of years thinking of their business, haven't quite made the jump yet. I know that this will really support them. So thank you, Charles.
Well, again, right, we're here to help at the end of the day. So again, right, if this conversation is going to help someone sort of, find the courage to do what they want to do, well, then that would be great.
Yeah, awesome.